know that they're all over RSA and Black Hat and whatever else, and Jen could make a Rubik's Cube, do Rubik's Cube things and whatever, and she's at some VC firm and good for her. But in the real context of national security, for the average person out there, or for the person that practices cyber, tell me what CISA has done and the value that they have specifically provided right now. And tell me that if they collapse, what happens to our critical infrastructure? I'm waiting. Right? These are questions that should be asked. Because your tax dollars and my tax dollars are going to fund this stuff. And if it's not actionable and they don't have title authority and they can't really do anything, what's the point? So my 2 cents would be, let's wait and see how this plays out, and we'll see if this makes an impact. And if it doesn't, then that kind of shows that the agency really wasn't all it was cracked up to be. I know counter opinion here, but just giving my 2 cents. Yeah. So stuff on NATO. NATO floats cybersecurity to be included in a new spending target. Well, it's only about time. I mean, yeah. So of course there's all these clicky clicks. So NATO proposes including expenditures on cybersecurity and activities related to border and coastal security to qualify for the military alliance's new defense-related spending target of 1.5% of GDP. Everybody in NATO. NATO started negotiating with countries on what will be allowed under its new spending target that it plans to adopt at a June summit, according to a document shared with member countries and people familiar with the matter. The total spending target will be 5% of GDP, with 3.5% on hard defense and 1.5% on defense-related outlays, which is where the cyber would fall into. Other expenditures that may qualify for the 1.5% portion will be protecting critical infrastructure, non-defense intelligence agencies, space-related, and blah, blah, blah. A broader definition of what qualifies as defense-related, good question, outlay would make it easier for countries to meet the target, with some nations lobbying to have expenditures such as counterterrorism to be included. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, R-U-T-T-E, said this week that he expected alliance members to approve that 5% target. That's a really bad picture of him they've got there. He looks like he got hit in the chin with a baseball, but whatever. A spokesperson from NATO didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Southern NATO countries are pushing for counterterrorism-related spending to be included. Some of the people said the inclusion of dual-use goods and other infrastructure will also have to be agreed on. Okay. Kiev is pushing for Ukraine aid to count towards spending, according to a person familiar with the matter. This will allow the country to make up for the fact that NATO isn't currently discussing the renewal of last year's $40 billion or 40 billion pound or euro, whatever, pledge for Ukraine. President Donald Trump first demanded allies spend 5% earlier this year and to threaten to pull out of the alliance or to only protect the allies that spend enough on defense. The figure was widely regarded as unrealistic when he mentioned it, but European allies and Canada have come around to understand that spending had to drastically increase. Only 23 of 32 allies reached the current spending target of 2%. So let's go take another step back here. So NATO Putin has used the NATO, I guess you'd call it incursion, as the impetus for basically the war in Ukraine, right? NATO kept coming up and getting closer to his borders and whatever else. And this is his talk track of why he's gone and invaded Ukraine. As NATO got really close, Ukraine was going to get into NATO and et cetera, and then we're going to basically take back Ukraine. Now, let's say that all of a sudden there's specific formulaic spending and allocations within NATO for cyber that defend NATO borders. Ukraine is part of this. There's already a physical kinetic war going on.